I'm here with Ewan Burns, Chief Engineer at Carillion and Internet of Things World Europe speaker. Ewan, how is the Internet of Things being used in construction and services right now?
At Carillion, we're trying to take the concept of putting IoT technology into a construction build, but also flow that through into the services environment. Within that services environment, we're trying to produce efficiencies within how we operate and benefits to our clients in the long-term operation of their buildings and their estates.
And how do you see the Internet of Things being used in construction and services and industry in the future?
I think there's a really strong place for IoT and the built environment where we actually develop this concept of augmented people. The process that you get to industrialising IoT allows us as built environment experts or our clients to really enhance what their core teams do and bring real benefit to their core business, whether that be banking, whether that be Ministry of Defence or any other area of the UK industry.
And how is Carillion specifically using Internet of Things right now?
We've taken some of our existing services contracts and we're starting to pull back more data from our client estates into our command centre in Manchester. This is allowing us to run predictive analytics, but also to influence in real time and the future of how we should be operating their estates. We do that for existing clients, but increasingly we're starting to bring online things in our construction world into that same location. This allows us to reduce the amount of effort, but being far more responsive to our clients' needs on a day-to-day basis. Over the long term, it also allows us to predict what their estate requires, the manning or the needs of their clients themselves or their own workforce.
And how do you see Carillion using the Internet of Things 12 to 24 months from now and also 5 to 10 years from now?
I think there's a real strong piece around trying to build the smarter world or the connected world one device at a time. So right now we're looking at bespoke business cases for sensor deployment, algorithmic deployment of data analytics, and we're trying to do that on a case-by-case basis, often looking at a task or an operation that we have to carry out and looking at how IoT can augment that process today. As we go through the next 12 to 24 months, we'll be able to aggregate these single-strand business cases into one much bigger business case. And there's a real clear line of sight from an individual use case right up to those smarter worlds. If you consider the built environment that most of our buildings today will be around in 2050, trying to figure out how to make those buildings smarter, how to build that more connected world, I think you have to start with the built environment as it stands today. Some of the equipment we put in has a life cycle of 30 or 35 years. So if we can find ways to deploy technology and sensors, then we have, over the next period of time, whether that be 2 or 3 years, we can really enhance what's going in today.
And you've written previously that the Internet of Things could potentially make UK industry the best in the world. How could this happen, and do you think it's likely to happen?
One of the assets that's most underutilised in the UK or in the developed world are the buildings in which all of our people operate, whether that be their home, their train stations, or the workplace in cities like London or Manchester. IoT and data analytics can develop those buildings and give the very best out of that building, but also enhance what people do. If we can tap into that rich vein of data and knowledge that buildings hold, then we'll be able to enhance everything. You'll get far more out of your workforce, you'll get far more out of your building. We can enhance the environment in which people work, but also deliver services and output to our teams on a day-to-day, second-by-second basis.
So you're speaking at Internet of Things World Europe, but of course that event is part of the much larger event, Techcelerate. Which other technology featured at Techcelerate do you think is most relevant to Carillion and its future?
It's very difficult to choose just one technology. I expect to see the vast improvement in a number of technologies over the next number of years, which will ultimately make the business case for technology adoption far easier. We have a very people-centric workforce and client offering at the moment. Technology for centuries has always changed that dynamic, making businesses more efficient and asking us to train and develop people in a different way. Right now we see things like VR or AR, or if you sit with Microsoft you go to their mixed reality offering of HoloLens. I see that whole space about instant expert, bringing augmented reality or virtual reality into the technical workspace as being one of the critical technologies of the future. But also that comes down to the pace at which it's developing. If you look at the high price tags for things like Daiquiri or to HoloLens, over the next 2 to 3 years I expect those prices to tumble. Also, as you've seen the increase in bandwidth availability, the reduction in the cost of storage and the reduction in cost of sensors, you can see how that all amalgamates into one place where you can see VR, AR or mixed reality becoming much more affordable, much quicker and also much more deployable. You then have to jump into another space. You might have to jump into 5G and that connected place around the UK or indeed the world where technology and signals and bandwidth haven't truly penetrated in real time. So those combinations I can see really making a difference to the technical workforce, but also all our business strands in any part of the built environment.
And finally, how else do you see Carillion using the new technologies that are becoming available to enterprises?
We look to use technology wherever we can at the right time and the right place. We don't look to invest in things for vanity, but we look to invest in it for the benefit of our team or our client's business. We'll look to use it in the development of new service strands so that our clients can improve what they do on a day-to-day basis. If you take one of the simpler examples, such as just simply monitoring the temperature in a tap, which you have to do for legislative reasons, we can start to use that data for the long term to provide different service strands to our customers, such as scald alerts on the output of that temperature, which historically we cannot do, or perhaps by collecting that data over the long term, we can start to provide analytics on how they really use their estate, identifying areas that aren't used from one day to the next to identifying high footfall areas. This will ultimately help us develop the built environment into the product and into that thing that can augment our people, but it's what we really need. It's not just what the architects or the designers thought 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago.
Thanks, Ewan.
Thank you.
To hear more from Ewan Burns, you can catch him at Internet of Things World Europe at Techcelerate from the 13th to the 15th of June.